Tommy Dew has been conducting historic walking tours in downtown Charleston for over 20 years. In this edition of Quintin's Post-Ups, I speak exclusively with him one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Post-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And listen to this interview later on iHeartRadio. And for more information on Tommy Dew's walking tours, go to TommyDewsWalkingTour.com. Tommy Dew, it is so good to see you.
Thanks, Quintin. Good to see you.
Likewise. You are coming to me with some great news. Obviously, the Charleston City Council passed a couple of ordinances, and it includes something that has something to do with your business.
That's right. So, well, first of all, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
And I've known you for years.
Yes.
We're men of the street.
Yes,
We're always on the sidewalks and sometimes down in the gutter.
Yeah.
So there are two ordinances that actually passed last night. One was to keep tour guides from blocking the sidewalk with their groups. The sidewalks are for all pedestrians and need to remain viable. I've been a licensed tour guide I'm in my 24th year of leading tours. And so one of the first instructions I give my group is we can only take over half the sidewalk today. We have to leave room for other pedestrians. It's just a quality of life issue. It's also a safety issue. We want to be respectful to other pedestrians. And as a tour guide, I think it's really important to have a low impact, a low profile. We're ambassadors. We want to paint a great picture of the city, but at the same time, we want locals to be able to enjoy their houses and enjoy their city too. And sometimes I worry that our industry gets a little too intrusive, and sometimes, like any industry, you're going to have guides that feel like it's their sidewalk, they pay taxes, they can do whatever they want to do when they're on public property. Yeah, perhaps to the letter of the law, but I don't think that's the spirit of it. And I think the ordinance that passed last night gives these officers some teeth. If you're blocking a sidewalk, you're not helping your cause or the city's, and and I think that needs to be enforced. In actuality, they moved some of the legislation that was already in existence in other areas of the city code to the tourism ordinance. So they specifically made sure that language was in the tourism ordinance so that they can write tickets. The ticket initially, it's 1,000 plus. Right. But generally, if it's a first-time offense and if you go before the judge, they will waive it or reduce it. So, yeah, that can be up to 1,000, but typically that's not the case.
24 years ago to right now, what is the biggest difference about you giving tours?
Well, clearly the city is growing. It's been growing year over year for decades. And I think there's a busyness to it now that you didn't used to see. The joke in Charleston was that traffic was a stoplight, getting stuck at a red light. Now, there's so many cars and there's so many people. And people are coming in from distant places with maybe busier attitudes. I think I've heard several locals complain lately that, we used to be a you first community and now we're a me first community. And so a lot of folks are coming here with this me first attitude. And you see it on the roads and, even on the sidewalks. It's more crowded and it's busier. And so I hate, I hate that you have to have legislation. I don't like the government getting involved too much. I would love it to be more self-regulating. But the law last night is just a very simple thing that will hopefully improve quality of life for Charlestonians.
What is that quality of life now?
Well, I think we have an exceptional quality of life, and maybe that's the problem. Everybody wants a piece of it. People love it so much. It's the most beautiful city in America. The weather's great. We have just incredible amenities. I've always said that downtown, day to day, lives like a village. Everybody sort of knows everybody. You're always seeing folks and waving and saying hi. But we have the cultural impact of a city that's millions and millions of people. Just a couple of years ago, Bon Appetit magazine picked us the #2 dining destination in the United States. That's remarkable when you consider we're about the 200th largest city in the United States. Mm-hmm. So locals benefit greatly from tourism and the amenities that all these dollars sustain. But there's a rub there. There's always going to be a rub between locals and tourists, and the management of that relationship is absolutely critical. And so as a tour guide, a guy that makes a living on tourists and all that this city has to offer, I do understand the need for regulations and making sure we maintain what we've got to some degree.
Obviously, I failed to mention this, but obviously you're a huge notable tour guide of Tommy Doo's walking tour.
Yes, sir.
And you're a part of the Palmetto Guide.
So I was last year, the city lost its case about licensing, and you no longer have to be a licensed guide. And I thought that was a big problem. And what I hoped would happen has happened. The Charleston Tour Association has created the Palmetto Guild. And so if you're part of the Tour Guide Association and you've passed the test, you then become part of the guild. And my company, for instance, has sworn an oath that we will only hire guides that are certified tour guides in the city. So the government no longer can mandate that people have to be licensed guides, but we as an industry can help to regulate that and ensure a certain level of quality.
How do you go about conducting your tours?
Well, my dad was an entrepreneur, and the first thing is the customer's always right. So I try to provide really good service to my people, take care of each and every one, and I've always collected my money at the end of the tour. So I've always said to my guests, if you don't like it, you don't pay. and I honor that. And so I think the main thing for me is I'm the owner of the company, and I don't have any employees. I give the tour myself every day, and I love what I do. I think it sounds a little bit cheesy, but I had an epiphany last year. I've never had a bad day at work. I've never, not one time. Sometimes you get cranky tourists. Sometimes, the weather can be bad. And sometimes, you can have weird experiences on tour, but I just see that as a slice of life. And every tour is different. And that's the great joy of the job. I meet new people every day, and they're happy to be here. They want to learn about the city. And so it's just an awesome opportunity. It's really an honor, I think, to be an ambassador, to be a tour guide in the city.
What more do you want to learn about Charleston?
Well, that's just it. Every day I learn something, and you never stop learning. And so I can walk down a street that I've walked down 5,000 times and talked about and notice something that I've never noticed before. And that's what makes Charleston so wonderful. It's so culturally rich. There's so many nooks and crannies and interesting spots and interesting people too. I love my engagements. I love it when locals stop my tour and say hey and engage, because that interaction is something that tourists like to see. I think, one, it comforts them to know that their guide is part of the community and has friends in the community. But they also, I think, are observers. A lot of folks are coming from distant places, and they find the South to be curious, and Charleston, maybe in particular, especially curious. And so they like to see how local people interact, and it's just insight. It's sort of a peek behind the curtain. So I love running into folks on tour, and I encourage them to engage me and even mess with me if they so choose.
That's right. I can do that sometime soon. But listen, if you were to take a tour on somebody else's tour, what would you want to see in Charleston now?
Well, there's so much to talk about, and there's so many different areas of interest. So architecture is probably the biggest draw, the number of old buildings and the quality of the preservation here. But then things like religious history and the American Revolution and the Civil War, slavery, rice culture, cotton culture, all these things. Yeah. Also, our flora and fauna, the natural areas. We have a very unique situation in terms of our geology and climate. The low country of South Carolina is a magical place. So I like guys that are experts. I think I've always said it's you want to know a little bit about a lot of things, but it's really important to be an expert at something. And I like guys that are experts. And so I have a lot of friends that are so knowledgeable, and there's so many great tour guides in the city, and they all have little areas that they focus on. And so I'm always learning. And I think that I think when you take a tour with other guides, and I do that occasionally just to stay fresh, I think it's always interesting to hear what they have to say. And these are things that I would not necessarily have thought about talking about. But again, that's the beauty of the place. There is so much to talk about. I've got guests that'll take my tour. Yeah, I've had guests take my tour over 10 times, but they'll make annual trips to Charleston. And they take my tour every time, and they'll say, "Oh gosh, it's so much different than last year." And so I see that as a high compliment. My tour is always evolving.
Mm. What else should be evolving when it comes to tour guides in Charleston?
I think I just got off the phone with the city's tourism commission, and I think about this ordinance. And for me, I think I've always said that we have continuing education in the tour guide field. You can take classes through the city to broaden your knowledge, but I think we need an etiquette class. I think we need a class for guides to teach them or just to offer suggestions as to how to behave in the city so that we tread lightly, we're not so impactful, and we keep the locals happy with us. I don't want to be in the business of offending locals. Just for instance, just a rule of thumb, I don't like talking about a house if I can see the owner. So if somebody's trying to enjoy their yard, enjoy their porch, sitting there reading the paper, I don't need to be standing 10 feet from them talking about their house. I think that's just poor form. And so you need to be nimble enough as a guide to walk down the street and you maybe talk about that house or just choose something else to talk about. That's a very simple thing.
When you take off your tour guide hat, who is Tommy Doo?
Well, I've been married for 24 years and I've got 3 kids, 21, 18, and 16. So I'm a family man. I live downtown, go to St. Philip's Church.
Yes.
I'm a musician in my heart of hearts. I went to the College of Charleston and I have a fine arts degree. And so in my heart of hearts, I'm a musician.
And you're from Richmond, Virginia.
I'm from Richmond, Virginia. So I was born and raised there, and I moved here back in '85. So I got here when I was 18. I never visited the College of Charleston. I just showed up, and I'm still here. I've lived downtown since 1985.
Wow.
I've always been between the rivers.
Wow. 33 years. Oh, my God.
It's a good long time.
Yeah. You know how old I am.
Yeah. Actually, you got a baby face, but I don't know how old you are.
34. But this was fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today.
Anytime, Tommy. Tommy Doo. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.